All right, my friends, we are ready to start. Hour is late, so let's begin. The plan for tonight is to learn more miscellaneous boyer laws from Shabbos KeHalacha. We started last week, yesterday actually, and hopefully we'll finish that, and we'll learn also some of the halachas of boyer that are specific to Yontif. And if you have any extra time, maybe we'll shoot some hoops in the back. No, I'm just kidding. We'll figure it out. Maybe we'll do a review or something.
I have a question about.
Yeah, go ahead. Question.
Something else, like.
Right.
Knife, if it's cold and melaphone, he will pass the meat to there that melaphone cold.
If the knife has any
clean, brand new.
If it's
not brand new, clean.
If the knife has milchiks on it, actual milchiks, and you cut a cucumber, then you have to scrape off. You have to scrape off a little bit if you want to use it. Less than a klipa. Greda, it's called. Scrape it off. It's not a whole peel. It's even less than that. And then the rest of it is not milchiks or fleishiks or whatever.
And if it's clean with the soap and everything?
It's clean. It's okay. Okay. I mean, it's not the best. The best is if you're planning to use it with milchiks, use it with milchiks or parv, vice versa. But if you did it already and it was clean, it's okay. Okay, so here's the thing. This is a chiddush of Rabbi Farkash. Raphael wanted to know last night where he gets his things from. Some things he makes up. Not that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's his own. So here's the chiddush, interesting chiddush. So the issue with peeling is that you're removing the bad from the good. Now, normally that's forbidden even right before eating, but because that's the only way you can get to the fruit, so therefore you can do it as long as it's right before eating. It's called derech achila. So here's the chiddush. It's only considered breira if you not only peel the fruit, but you peel it in a way that the peel and the fruit is separate. If, however, you peel it in a way that you leave it mixed with the peels, that means you don't hold it in your hand and peel it and the peels fall down, because then it's already separated. It means you leave it on the table or on the bowl, and you peel it like mamish there, and
like
you leave
like the
carrot, cucumber, whatever, and you leave the peels there with the thing there. He says that's not called boyer at all, because you didn't separate it. I mean, you cut it off, but you kept it mixed in. And therefore his chiddush is that you can even do that in the morning for using in the afternoon. Obviously you can't do it for after Shabbos because you can't prepare for after Shabbos. But you could do it in the morning or afternoon because it's not considered an act of reira, an act of selecting.
So that's Lishit as well?
Why not? Lamelo. Similarly, he says, you're allowed to crack a nut, like a walnut. When you crack it, the nut itself stays in the shell. And it's only, whatever it is, only after you crack it, you have to take it out. So he says if you take it out, that's breira. If you just crack it and leave it, it's not breira. What do? You crack the shell. You didn't separate, you didn't select. Actually, if you listen carefully, you'll realize that this last chiddush, that he says that you can crack a nut early in advance as long as you don't take it out, is actually obvious if you think about it. Why? Because if cracking a nut would be considered an act of breira, then you would not be allowed to do it with a nutcracker. A nutcracker is a designated keli that is used specifically for breira. So if you're doing an act of breira, you could not use the keli that is designated for that. So the chiddush is that because you're actually not doing breira, you're just cracking it open. Breira is when you take it out. Till you take it out, you haven't done breira. So the fact that you're using a keli to crack it doesn't make a difference because you're not doing breira. The only thing is, he says, if it's a type of nut that as soon as you crack it open, the whole nut falls out. It's not tight in there. For example, hazelnuts. I don't remember if I ever cracked a hazelnut, but whatever. Just good to know.
Pistachio?
Yeah, but pistachio, you don't use a nutcracker. But yeah, it's true. It's the same idea, but you don't use a nutcracker.
It's loose. It comes.
Yeah. The point is, pistachio, yes. Pistachio, yes. I'll say that in a minute. But the point is, you, according to him, you could not use a nutcracker if you're opening a hazelnut, because there the breira happens right away, and you're using a special keli for it. So you would have to do it with a hammer or something that's unusual to do it with. And even so, only right before eating. As far as the pistachio, yeah, you don't use a keli for a pistachio, but I'm saying because it does fall out right away, obviously that is an act of breira, unless you do it on the table and leave it mixed in. Otherwise, you are doing an act of breira, and you could only do it right before eating. Right before eating. With a what? Right before eating. Or a pistachio doesn't need a hammer, but if you're separating them, not just cracking them open, but you're separating them, so that the shells are separate from the fruit or the nut or whatever it's called, then you have to do it only right before eating.
And the nutcrackers before Shabbos, and you can, once it's already cracked in Shabbos, you can take it out.
You can use a nutcracker on Shabbos.
On Shabbos.
On Shabbos, that's the chiddush. Because a nutcracker, when you crack it open, you're not actually separating. After you crack it, then you have to separate. So the scooping out of it is the act of breira, but the cracking is not an act of breira. So therefore, you don't have to. You're allowed to use even a designated keli for it. Now, this is all, by the way, not according to the Alter Rebbe and the Siddur. Alter Rebbe and the Siddur advises against cracking nuts, because he's concerned that after you crack it, maybe there'll be a bit of a shell there, and you'll take it out, and that'll be boyer, chiyuv chatas, skila, or maybe you'll just make a pile of nuts, and it'll be a muktzah problem. So the Alter Rebbe advises against it. But I'm saying, by the letter of the law, that's the halacha. Yes.
But if you want to eat it right now, you can do it. You can use that.
Nuts. Alter Rebbe does not advise cracking any nuts on Shabbos. He doesn't say it's asur. He advises against it. He advises against
Not for afternoon, for right now.
it. Even for right now.
Even for right now.
Yeah. It's a protection. It's an extra protection. It's not an isser mamish. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's an haga toiva. Like on Pesach, people have all kinds of chumras. Is it a halacha? No. It's a chumrah. If you ask a rav, he'll say you can do it. It's no problem. Can I use this product, that product? As a hechsher, why not? I mean, kosher for Pesach, 100%. Your family has a thing they don't. Okay, fine. But that's not a halachic thing. That's a extra super chumrah.
Minhagim, Rabbi?
Minhagim, yeah.
So why didn't the rabbis institute with all these things to do them on Friday?
Because the rabbis were practical people, and they knew that on Friday it's busy enough as it is.
Thursday, do it before
running
Shabbos.
around
Before Shabbos.
Before Shabbos, you crack
you want
nuts,
this,
and
you
leave
want
your nuts around. I mean,
want to put tablecloth, whatever. Why couldn't they institute? Why? Because it was too much of a hardship.
It will be dry.
we have enough rules. They're not going to make extra rules that are not necessary.
Practically speaking, it is easier to do it all on Friday. You don't have to. at your
According
leisure.
to the
anytime
Alter
you
Rebbe, yes. But again, it's not a din, it's a positive behavior. It's not a din. Why did the Chachamim not make it as a din? The Chachamim only made the din that they felt were necessary.
Yes.
They tried not to make extra impositions on Klal Yisrael. Sometimes when they made extra impositions, the Yidden didn't accept it and they didn't keep it. And then those hanhagos tovos, those good takonos, they just fell away and became not forgotten, but they fell into disuse. Shemen, we had it in the Daf Yomi today.
I was going to ask you examples.
Shemen akum. There used to be an Isser on Shemen akum.
Why?
Just like Bishul akum and Pas akum and all those things. So you shouldn't become too friendly and eat with them. And so they made their oil also Asr. It was too hard. So they officially repealed it when they realized that people weren't keeping it anyway.
Remember that Pas Yisrael was also, is that true?
Some say Pas Yisrael is like that, yeah.
When then I took a Mashgiach course, basically 7 years ago. And I remember always that, but when I asked someone, they told me that it wasn't. But some say that it is, some say that it's not.
Some say, yeah. And because the Bavli and the Yerushalmi have very different rules of Pas Yisrael. Like the Bavli is much stricter. Yerushalmi is much more lenient. So, but the Maisa, the Psak is Lahakal, according to Ashkenazim. Sfardim are supposed to be stricter on Pas Yisrael. But some question how is it we're passing against the Bavli? We always pass like the Bavli. So they say, I don't remember who says it. Some say that the Bavli is talking about the original Takana, but then it was decided that it was too hard and people weren't keeping it, so they took it back and left it only with certain details, much more lenient than originally. Sorry?
What would be what is still what is still
if you have the same thing in the same city and it's not more expensive, you're supposed to buy from a Jew. It's the same quality, the same price, you're supposed to buy from a Jew. And certainly pas balabayas, certainly even Ashkenazim have to keep pas balabayas. You can't buy it from your neighbor even if it's kosher. But another example that also was repealed is Tfilas Ezra. Tfilas Ezra was too hard, go to the mikveh, and so on every time. So they took it back. Okay, anyway. Rabbeinu Nissim
says that it was pulled back from Torah, but not from Tefillah. You've seen such a thing?
Yeah, that's also brought in the Talmidei Rabbeinu Yoina on Brachas. Yeah, back of Brachas around the Rif instead of the Ran, you have the Talmidei Rabbeinu Yoina. So they say that also. So anyway, speaking of this Alter Rebbe's Chiddush, are you up to date here? Or should we catch you up? Not yesterday? Okay, but we discussed this in the past. The Alter Rebbe says not to shell nuts on Shabbos because it could lead to boyer, it could lead to Isser of Muktzah. So Bar Farkash asks a question on the Alter Rebbe from a clear halacha in Hilchos Pesach, which the Alter Rebbe quotes, Chaber quotes it. I think it's from the Gemara. I don't remember exactly where it's from, but I think it's from the Gemara. And that is Mechalkin Kloyes ve'egoizim l'tinoikes kadesh lo yishnu. To keep the kids excited on the night of Pesach, you give them roast grain and nuts. You give them roast grain and nuts. Yeah, roast grain just without any water. I mean, just roast. If you roast grain in an oven, you don't add any water. Kosher Pesach. I don't think we do it nowadays, but it is kosher Pesach.
Also, water boiling.
The what? Yeah, boiling we don't do.
No.
Boiling we for sure don't do.
Okay,
Roast grain says also we don't.
we're not afraid to somebody will put water there, accident.
Be careful. What do you mean? Don't be afraid. Be careful. Watch it. Okay, so the point is, if you give your kids roast grain nowadays, they'll certainly wake up because they won't know what that is. Even nuts, they're totally not used to. But anyway, exactly. But in any case, that was like the treats of those days. So what's the pshat? If the Alter Rebbe is advising against it, the truth is that's Yontif. On Yontif, this whole chumrah of the Alter Rebbe does not apply. All right, you're allowed to crack nuts even according to the Alter Rebbe on Yontif. Why? Echel nefesh, give me more. No, explain. Just explain what you mean, that's all.
Shabbat.
Jensen has an extra leniency.
Of Echel nefesh, and therefore,
The final action for food are usually.
exactly, and therefore, even if there would be a shell amongst the nuts, you're allowed to remove it. What's the chashash of the Alter Rebbe? Boyer. Okay, but that's on Shabbos when you can't remove it. But on Yontif, you're allowed to remove it. In fact, that's the preferred way to remove it on Yontif because you're supposed to be memayed, but tircha. You're supposed to, the less tircha, the better. So it's easier to just take out the shell. So that's allowed, no problem. As far as muktzah is concerned, muktzah is mutter letzorach oichel nefesh on Yontif. I'm going to qualify that a little bit just for your information, even though we're learning Hilchos Shabbos. But Yontif is coming up, so I will explain to you a very important point about that. When we say muktzah is mutter for oichel nefesh, we don't mean to eat muktzah. You cannot eat muktzah on Yontif because it's muktzah from eating. So how can you eat it? That's saying that there's no such thing as muktzah on Yontif. On the contrary, muktzah is even more strict on Yontif than on Shabbos. So you can't eat muktzah, but you can use muktzah. You can move muktzah, for example, to get the food. Let's put it that way. You can move muktzah to get the food, even things that are muktzah, to such an extent that you're not normally allowed to move them. For the sake of food and Yontif, you're allowed to move them. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. So the point is that the fact that you're giving out nuts on regular Yontif is no problem. But what about when Yontif coincides with Shabbos, as it does this year? Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch just says for the Seder night, machalkin klois ve'goizim. So according to this, why are we doing that if it's Shabbos? Sorry? It could be, although it's not the usual way, but it could be. I hear what you're saying. The truth is, honestly, it's not a real question. It's more of a point of conversation question, because the Alter Rebbe wrote the Shulchan Aruch before he wrote the Siddur. And when he wrote the Shulchan Aruch, he was following the main halacha, which is that you're allowed to crack nuts open on Shabbos. So you can't ask a question why in the Shulchan Aruch he didn't write about what he's going to write years later in the Siddur. And you can't ask why he didn't go back and change the Shulchan Aruch when he wrote the Siddur, because he didn't go back and change it even in its source in Hilchos Shabbos. Right? I mean, he was going to go over the whole Shulchan Aruch again and write his revised opinions, and he started, but he didn't finish, and he never got far. So the point is that you can't really ask it as a question. But nevertheless, it's a point of interest. And Rabbi Farkash suggests, since it's only on Haga Toiva, for the sake of keeping the children up, it's more important. Goiver, it's more important that they should stay up. Okay. Or you could say simply that maybe nowadays, now when the Alter Rebbe wrote not to do it, maybe he would actually say not to do it for Shabbos, unless it was open before. Okay, let's go back to the idea of peeling fruits. We discussed in the past different opinions about peeling. No. peeling edible fruits, peeling fruits that have an edible peel. We discussed in the past that it's a machlokes between the later achronim. I'm sorry? Apple, exactly, cucumber. So if it's a peel that most people eat, some say, I think of Moshe says, that it's not forbidden to peel. The rules of peeling don't apply. There's no prohibition of peeling because it's cutting food from food. And if there's no boirer, we said many times, you can use even a kli hamiyuchad. So therefore you should be allowed to even use a peeler. No, on Shabbos. Yeah. Shabbos a peeler for foods that have an edible peel. One second. This has to be clarified. Some say. Moshe says that it's not considered boirer because it's edible. So it's like using a kli that is miyuchad for boirer to do an act that is not boirer. Like we said, you can strain water, you can strain wine. That's completely clean. It's not a problem. So the same thing here. For that matter, following along the same logic, you could do it in advance also. You don't have to do right before eating because it's not an active boirer. Yes.
If the apple, they have some like a big area. When you peel, you can peel that as well.
No, that's already bad. If it's bad, then it's more of a shaila. You definitely should not use a peeler for that, because then you're using a kli hamiyuchad for boirer. You understand? If part of the apple is bad, that part is like the psoilus. So you can't use a peeler for that.
So this apple you cannot eat in Shabbat.
I didn't say you can't eat it in Shabbos. I said you cannot use a peeler for that.
No peel, but you can cut it off.
You cut it to half. You can even cut off that bit with a little bit extra. Cut off that bit with a little bit extra.
And then you can peel the other one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, whether you can peel or not is a machlokes. But according to the opinion that says you can peel, you can peel.
Okay.
The other opinions, I think Shlomo Zalman says that because once you peel it, it's going to become psoilus. People in Western countries do not eat apple peels per se, separately, so therefore it's forbidden. And according to him, you cannot use a peeler. And you must do it in advance. So Lemaisa Farkash doesn't say what to do. He brings two opinions. What he does say is, if you're in a rush and you're going to rely on Rav Moshe, doesn't say that you can or not, whatever. He says if that's what you're going to do, at least you should peel extra. In other words, if you're using the peeler, do it in such a way that you take out extra flesh together with it, so that it should not be considered boyer psoilus only, and that's a little bit of an extra way to make it more lenient.
Even though the peeler is taking out stuff.
So the small amount of oichel that goes with the peeler all the time, the poskim say, that Tzitz Shulchan says that doesn't help you, because that's the only way to take off this psoilus. It's considered part of the psoilus, basically. But if you're taking extra that you would normally take, that's when there's makom lahatir. I do want to point out, Rav Farkash explains, why is a peeler considered a kli hamiyuchad l'boyer? And I must say that there is an oral tradition in the name of Rav Moshe Feinstein. It's not in any of his farms, so it's kind of hard to know about it. But it is printed in the 39 Malachos, in that book. Oral tradition, I don't remember who heard it from him, whatever. That Rav Moshe held that a peeler is not considered a kli hamiyuchad l'boyer, because it's just a knife. It's a knife that's, like two knives next to each other.
Why is that not the reasoning that he allows it?
No, he allows it because the peel is edible. And an edible peel is not, it's not boyer because it's oichel me'oichel. It's oichel of the same type me'oichel. But anyway, Rabbi Farkash says that it should be considered a kli hamiyuchad l'boyer for the very simple reason that what's the pshat of kli hamiyuchad l'boyer? It's a kli that helps you do the boyer. It helps you, like a nappa, a quara, a sieve, a sifter, all these things. They're designed to do the boyer in the best way. So he says the whole point of a peeler is that because it has a very thin opening, so it allows you to cut off a small amount of peel without wasting extra potato or apple or whatever it is. So that's really what a KeHalacha bar is. It helps you separate in the best way. So that's why he does consider it a KeHalacha bar. As far as somebody who does want to rely on Reb Moshe and peel an edible peel, and with a peeler, he says a carrot is not considered an edible peel. I know he knows that, but apparently somebody did a poll and discovered that most people do not eat carrot peels, or I should say carrots with peels. Anybody? Raise your hand if you eat a carrot with a peel. No one?
Really a peel. It's raw.
I'm saying a raw carrot.
It's not really a peel. It's just
With the peel. Oh, here we have one. Anybody else?
Yes.
If it wasn't
Yeah.
dirty, I would eat it.
it's dirt. It's not really.
I'm saying, do you? I know, of
If
course.
I wash it,
If you wash it, no peel.
I would eat it.
You would or you do?
Depends on how dirty it is.
You don't eat raw
No
carrots, so
peel,
that
no
doesn't
peel.
count.
I'm not-
No, no,
I
how
like
dirty it is
everything.
once you wash it. Carrots.
I don't peel anything.
No one gives you
Right, but
carrots.
sometimes the only way to
You're a big
clean
boy.
it-
By the way,
Carrots is edible.
Rabbi, by the way, the peel is healthy. It's give you more.
I know, I know.
And I
I
don't peel
know.
anything.
It is healthy, but not if it's not organic. If it's not organic, you're eating all the poison that they poison the bugs with.
You're eating dirt,
Oh.
maybe even
Dirt is maybe not unhealthy, but pesticides are unhealthy. Anyway, you?
What would I do?
What do you do? Now, what would you do? This is not a theoretical
It's
question.
like the filtered water, because you like the water from the spout. I need to drink a cup of non-filtered water every so often, so I can use the filter on top.
Oh, so that's what you do? You eat
So
some
if
unpeeled
you
carrots
tell
once in a
me
while?
that I can't have carrots on Shabbos,
I didn't say
unless I
that.
eat non-peeled carrots, I'll eat non-peeled
No,
carrots.
no. I'm just trying to figure out what their
Somebody makes a salad with a dip.
Yep.
If they're fancy, most likely a caterer, they might peel carrots.
No, most people peel carrots.
Oh, but not everyone.
I didn't say
They
everyone.
wash it well.
I didn't say everyone. I didn't say everyone.
Well, there's such a big difference. I mean, I think people mainly peel it for the dirt.
For the convenience, for the dirt. Okay. Anyway, Lemaisa, that's what he
it's not
says.
a peel. But that's what I'm saying. It's not a peel.
What do you mean it's not a
That's
peel?
right.
It's
Is
the
it
same.
a peel?
It's the same appeal as any other edible peel.
No, it's not like an
No, but
apple
it's not
peel.
something.
It's the same
Just
peel
think
as
about
any
the
other
top
peel.
layer.
It's an edible peel.
But
An edible peel.
But it's not a discrete entity.
We don't
So-
consider it a peel. It's part of
It's
the,
part of it.
If
part
it's
of the carrots.
a part that is not normally eaten, just like a bit
But
of
it may be depending on
just
how
like a
dirty it
bit
is.
just like a bit of the rotten apple. It's part of the apple, but it's rotten. People don't eat it.
People don't eat apple.
What?
What? People eat apple peel?
People eat apple with the peel.
No. I'm saying if you peel an apple, no one will just eat the peels.
I understand that. That's the
Well,
swore
you
of
could
those
have
that say that
benefit
edible
because you're
peels
edible
have to
peel.
follow the rules of butter.
Yeah.
But the ones that say no, it's because they consider it as part of it. They look at it the way it is eaten as part of it. You understand?
Rabbi, a baby carrot, it's like really, you don't need to peel it.
A baby carrot is already peeled for you. There's no such thing as a baby carrot, by the way. The whole thing is marketing. A baby carrot is a real carrot that they cut down with the machine to look like a
Small.
baby.
Okay.
It's actually an adult cut into 5 pieces. Poor thing.
So,
So,
It's all the rejected carrots.
is that what it is?
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
the broken ones, they can just
Okay.
immediately.
Good to know.
Was it shape on that one?
Yeah. Okay. As far as other fruits, vegetables like cucumbers or whatever, he says if you want to follow the kula of Rav Moshe and peel it with a peeler, you need to make sure that it is mostly consumed in your country where you're living, that most people do eat it with a peel, then it's okay.
do you eat the peel on a cucumber?
Do I eat the peel on the cucumber? I do.
So do I.
Very good.
When I was a kid, they told us that by eating the peel on the cucumber, it helps your digestion. Where a lot of people
think the
couldn't
Gemara says
digest
that,
cucumbers properly, but with the peel they could. So I don't know if it's.
Yeah, well, the peel is probably more roughage, which is good for your digestive system, but I don't know.
I think the Gemara says that if you
Really?
Digestion.
When they get
Could
the
be.
peel of a cucumber, you eat the peel.
You definitely do. Imagine it without the peel. Poor thing. Okay. Okay, here's an interesting chiddush that we never said because we didn't learn Shin Chaf Aleph yet. But since Rabbi Farkash brings it down, I will quote it now. There is a Yerushalmi that says that taking the cloves of garlic, I should say, peeling the outer peel of the garlic in order to take out the inner, the cloves inside the, what is it called? That whole head, the head? To take the cloves out of the head of garlic is considered mefarek. Mefarek. You understand? You can't do mefarek even right before eating. Right? You can't do mefarek even right before eating. Boirer, you can do just before eating, because that's called derech achila. Mefarek you can't do even right before eating. You can't milk a cow and say, well, I'm about to eat. Derech achila. No, that's not derech achila. You can't break open the pods. We had this in Shin Test. We had this. You can't break open an inedible pod to take out the pea, because that's mefarek. Although it depends if it's something normally done in the field or normally done in the house, whatever, but that's the halacha.
So how do you open the nuts to mefarek?
Oh, so that we said is not mefarek because most nuts are sold, at least they used to be, unshelled, and the consumer shelled them. It wasn't done in the field. That was the way we gave it the understanding. The things that are normally done in the field, that's mefarek. The things that are normally done in the house, that's called derech achila. That's the way to eat. So actually, according to this, it's not clear at all why the Yerushalmi would say this. Because, I mean, they don't they don't take off that outer, peel of the garlic in the field. They sell you a head and you take it out yourself. Which is why some say that the Yerushalmi is not la halacha. It's an opinion. We don't follow that opinion. And that's it. Or alternatively, that simply the circumstances changed. That garlic used to be much more expensive, and they didn't sell a whole head of garlic. They actually sold individual cloves. So they would actually break it apart in the field, and therefore to open it up was considered mefarek in those days. According to that, it would be mutter nowadays when we don't have that lifestyle anymore.
According to the opinion that you can't open it,
Yep.
what happens if you put a whole clove in your cooking? And when you
So
serve
you
it,
can open the clove. I'm talking about around the head. There's one skin that surrounds them all. The clove is okay. The whole head, not the whole
The
clove.
whole thing, yeah.
The whole head, okay.
And when they serve you the dish, a lot of times it will be there. Can you tear it apart and different people take it, or you want to use it?
So what Rabbi Farkash says is you're actually allowed to break. You're allowed to break it and take a clove from inside. You just can't peel it.
Okay.
Peeling it is the
Just
problem.
tear it apart.
If you break it and grab it from the inside without actually peeling it, that's okay.
The shum?
Sure.
Shum, yeah, I like to take one and eat it. It's really allowed to do that.
Some say you have to break the outer peel. Outside, there's one peel that goes around all of the little pieces. Some say you have to break that apart before Shabbat. You can take out, you know what I'm saying?
Let's say if it's like that, I cannot break one of them, wherever it's there.
No, you cannot break out the outer peel.
I'm not pay attention to the other. I just
There is an outer peel usually.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Around the whole
When
thing.
they sell it and when Nixie they sell it. With
Yeah,
that.
usually.
Yeah.
So that you cannot peel off.
So you have to pick it apart.
So you can
before
break it
Shabbat.
apart without peeling. No, you can just take off that peel before Shabbat. Then you can break it apart.
Okay.
Sorry? Yeah. As long as you don't peel it off.
It's tough to peel it off.
You're cutting it, but you're not peeling it.
after happens, then.
And then for,
Yeah.
Okay.
We had this actually, if you remember, when we were discussing the green peels around the nuts. You know, the nuts have the hard shell, they have the inner thin membrane, and then they have a green peel around them. So we said that's mefaret, to take off the green. But we said if you break it, the green and the hard together, and just take out the thing, that's okay. Same thing, exactly. As long as you don't peel it, you just break it, that's okay.
The garlic is cooked or raw or.
One more time, sorry. One more time, sorry.
When it's cooked already, put the whole garlic, whole head of garlic in your soup. Now it's cooked. You allowed it? Is you still consider?
I don't know. Any idea? I didn't see any difference. I'm not sure. Okay.
Can you allow to smash the garlic?
Smash.
No. With the hand or with a knife, smash it and then take the oil out from the sauce.
The whole thing.
One.
Oh, one roll, please.
You're talking about taking one clove from the head?
Right, it's gonna be taken apart. This is already apart, right? This is apart, but the clove is still with the sauce.
Which psodas? Which psodas?
The outside of the clove.
I'm talking about the individual peel around that clove. That you can peel right before using. That's not different than any other peel. You can peel it right before using it with a knife. You're not allowed to crush garlic on Shabbos. You can break it into 2 or 3 pieces. You can't actually crush garlic on Shabbos.
Some people have those squeezers that they use.
Not on Shabbos. That would be tough.
The cup, you should.
To break it a little bit, you're saying. You can't crush it completely. Yeah, if you just smash it once with a crush. If you just smash it once with a cup to break it a little bit, that's not called crushing. Crushing means to make it into small pieces. That's not allowed. Okay. So why not? It's good. It's a big mitzvah to eat garlic on Friday night. It's a big thing. It's a big thing for.
I think it was
Really?
3 things that opposite man was it in there. I mean, you should
Why?
have made on Shabbos.
Because why?
3 things that you couldn't feel the time of earth in the month, and therefore you don't get
Garlic,
Shabbos.
onion, there's more than 3 now.
I think it was only 3 and you don't. You're not supposed to every day.
But there's a thing to dafke eat garlic on Friday night because it's Mar B'Zera.
That's why.
What do you mean? But it's Friday night. It's a mitzvah night.
Okay, it's not.
I'm saying if it is,
Fresh garlic, like stench.
that's a side problem. Secondary problem.
It's against what? Right.
I don't know. I don't remember seeing that it's only called garlic, but maybe. I don't know. I think it's Takanas Ezra. I'm pretty sure it's Takanas Ezra to dafke eat garlic Friday night. I'm not mistaken, it's only Takanas Ezra. Sorry?
Maybe something else.
I don't think it's followed, but
It's one of those that kind of went away. I didn't see it
maybe
being.
the tzibur couldn't do it. It was too, the smell was too strong. I actually used to eat in Australia by somebody who kept the takana very strictly. No matter where you were sitting by the table, you knew that he kept it. Anyway, all right. So, what's the story with powdered sugar? You want to spread powdered sugar on your chocolate cake. Are you allowed to use a sifter? You're allowed to use a sifter to spread the sugar on the cake. I'd like to say yes. I'd like you to be right, but I want to know if you're right.
Yeah, because if you take it to break the nuts with the tools, you can use any for food. It's no.
For food, you have to know what you're doing. Not everything for food is mutter. I mean, I hear what you're saying, that it's like the breaking the nuts. I hear what you're saying.
Basically, it doesn't sound like when you use a sifter that you're actually separating.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's the key
What do you
word.
say, sifting with water?
That's the key
What
word.
is it?
When you use the sifter to spread the powdered sugar, you're not actually sifting. You're just using it to spread it. You want it to spread evenly and nicely, but you're not actually sifting with it. So it's okay. It is a kliyam yuchad. That's the chiddush. You can use a kliyam yuchad for boyer as long as you're not doing boyer. You said that many times. You can use a strainer for clean water, for clean wine. You can use a nutcracker because that's not boyer. Because even after you crack the nut, it's still mixed in. So that's the chiddush.
Bigger pieces just doesn't go down.
Yeah, but the bigger pieces are not separate. You know what I'm saying? They're not different. Not sure about that, actually. Not sure about that. You mean the clumps of sugar? The clumps of sugar.
Could you crush the, if you have pieces of sugar, could you crush them?
You are allowed to crush them, yeah. You are allowed to crush them. I'm sorry?
With that clean?
It's ein tchina achar tchina. All the sugar was already crushed once. No, I'm not talking about garlic. I'm talking about powdered sugar. You spread it with a sifter. There are maybe a few little balls because of the moisture in the air, maybe a few of them clumped up. You're allowed to break up those clumps because that's sugar. Sugar was already ground up, you know what I'm saying?
You're allowed to break this one, but when you have mud, dry mud, you're not allowed.
Because mud was never broken.
But it was sand that just got together.
It was sand, but it was never broken. It was born as sand. Sugar was made into sugar. Ein tochen achar tochen means if it was ground, you can grind it. But sand was never ground. It was just naturally pieces. So that doesn't apply. Tochen achar tochen means it was actually ground. But anyway, but it is an interesting question. If interesting question. Because we did say yesterday that the pieces, taking the pieces out of matzah meal is considered boyer. Even though when it comes to big and small pieces, we didn't say this, but we said there is no boyer. Big and small pieces of the same type. There's no boyer, big pieces of fish, small pieces of fish. But matzah meal, we said, is considered a liquid for the purpose of boyer. So the pieces in it are considered separate from it. I'm saying in terms of them being a different species. So I wonder about the sugar. But then again, if you're going to crush it anyway, so it's not really, you're not really separating it. You're just, finding it to be able to crush it, and then you'll put it through also. I'm not sure. It's something to think about, but I'm not sure. Okay, we continue and we say, how to remove pieces of cork, Rabbi Isai. Piece of cork. You open your wine bottle, and the cork didn't come out so cleanly. So you pour in your wine into your Kiddush cup, and there, floating on the top, you have some cork, pieces of cork. Same as a fly? No?
We said we'll blow here, and then we blow here, and then come to the edge, and then we can.
That is true. It also is worth pointing out that if it's a very small amount and most people would drink it anyway, then it's no problem, even to remove it as is. Because where it doesn't apply if it's... No, if it is edible as is to most people, and it doesn't bother you very much, you're not an istinus, so then you could remove it yourself. Just interesting thing. But if it does bother you, No, because it's not. It's considered part of it.
So the flax is also too.
A fly, yeah, for sure is awesome. Okay. Okay, number 15 we learned already. I don't know why I wrote it, but it's pretty clear.
How is matzah meal considered a liquid?
How is what?
Matzah meal considered a liquid?
Not for the purpose of gebrachts, for the purpose of it being a separate species than the matzah. It has a separate species. It's like it has a different use. You use matzah meal as matzah meal. You use matzah as matzah. You understand? It's not like when you have pieces of fish. You have big pieces, you have small pieces. It's all fish, big deal. It's not like selecting. But
Okay.
matzah meal.
So it's a different min,
Exactly.
but what's the practical application?
Practical application is if you have pieces of matzah mixed in with matzah meal, you can only separate them using the rules of boyer. You can only take what you want right before use. You can't take the pieces out of the matzah meal if you don't want those pieces. You understand? This is all on Shabbos, not on Yantif. If it's Yantif, then you can, because you're allowed to do boyer on Yantif. But if it's on Shabbos, you wouldn't be allowed to take out the pieces from the matzah meal.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Missing one from Myrev.
No pray. No pray.
I didn't.
No pray. No pray. No pray. We okay.
I'm going to text Chaim Tuskiel. Even better. Where is he?
Yosef. Yosef. Right?
Oh, but why did you say it's a liquid? Just because it's a different, it's like a liquid. It's not as it being a different
Exactly.
min.
Yeah, he's good.
I haven't known many other people. It's great. Like 40 minutes.
Shouldn't be.
Okay. His KeHalacha. Okay. So here is the deal with a slotted spoon, my friends. Slotted spoon, we said yesterday, or whenever we said it, is called a kli hamiyuchad leboyer. On the other hand, we said yesterday that if you're taking out large pieces from the soup, which are not considered mixed, because large pieces of solid and liquid are not considered mixed, you can use a slotted spoon because you're not doing boyer. On the other hand, if it's small pieces, then it is a problem. Now, what Rabbi Farkash says here, and this is a bit of a chiddush because not everybody agrees with it. I think maybe we even quoted one of the other achronim that disagrees with it. But he says that you are not allowed you are not allowed you are not allowed to use a slotted spoon, even if your intention is not to separate between the liquid and the solid. You want to take out the solid, but you don't care if some of the liquid comes out with it. You don't care. So there is one of the achronim that says it's not a problem because it's not your intention and whatever. So he says it is forbidden because it's a psik ratio. When you take that thing the slotted spoon is definitely going to strain out most of the liquid, almost all of the liquid. But the liquid will be stuck to it, okay? But that's a psik ratio. You can't do boyer with a psik ratio. So he says, even though that's, what are you talking about? Don't want a person who he doesn't care to use a regular spoon. He just can't find one. He looks around, he sees a slotted spoon. So he figures I'm going to use a slotted spoon because that's all I can find. That's not allowed. He says it's like saying, well, I can't do the thing without a malacha, so I'll do a malacha on Shabbos. I have no other way of doing it. It doesn't work that way. If it's a psik resha, just because you didn't want it to be a psik resha doesn't mean it's not a psik resha. Understand? So therefore, it's a problem.
We're talking about spoon with the
holes.
With the holes.
Exactly.
Regular spoon is no problem.
Regular spoon is no problem. To take what you want. To take what you want for immediate use.
Yes.
Yeah.
From the salad, right?
Salad, soup, whatever. I'm sorry? What do you mean? A spoon like that for thick cholent, which doesn't go through it, yeah, why not? Because that's not actually selected. Okay, now.
By the way, let's see, someone wanted to put extra potatoes. We really do put it for the potatoes.
Why? He wants them. You're looking for what he wants.
Pushing away whatever it is.
Pushing away, here's a very important call, my friends. Pushing away to one side, but leaving it in the mixture is not called boyer. Pushing it out of the mixture, that's called boyer. But pushing it to one side of the boyer, just moving, and getting to what you want, but leaving everything in is not called boyer. That's not called boyer. That's okay.
Just make a mess and chewing.
The child is a mess anyway.
You have eggs also.
It's nice. It's nice to see it nice, and when you start to go like that, the next person is coming.
Pichon comes from the word chaud in French.
Which means what?
It's hot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with messed up or anything. It's hot food.
Okay.
Wow. I mean,
Okay. Not a chiddush.
Well, that's actually the whole point of the challenge,
Right.
is to have hot food on Shabbos as opposed to the tzedukim who didn't. Okay. So.
Oh, he's from Montreal.
He speaks French.
You speak French?
I know the word, but I don't speak French. Claire show means very.
Okay, my friends.
40 years ago.
But yeah, you have soup, and on the bottom of the soup you have, the different pieces, and you want to pour out the soup and leave behind the pieces. So this is not a chiddush because we learned it in different ways about different things. You can pour out the top, the soup. When you get to the point where it's mixed, you stop. Even so, if you want the soup, you can pour it out even when it's mixed for immediate use, because you're pouring out what you want for immediate use. But if you want to separate it and not use it, then you have to stop when you reach that.
Can you ladle it till you get down there?
Yeah,
You have
same
to
thing.
pour it, same thing.
Ladle is the same thing. No problem. No problem at all. Similarly,
Why is that not considered one?
it is one entity, but it's only mixed on the bottom. Only mixed on the bottom.
You only want the top part.
No.
The top part is not mixed.
Why is it not mixed?
Because it's not. It's on the top. It's separate. There's nothing mixed into it. When you get to the bottom where the pieces are, that part is mixed. Just like we said, if you have fat on the top of milk, unhomogenized milk, where the fat separates and rises to the top, you can scoop off, you can scrape off the top of the fat. You just have to leave the layer that's actually touching the milk. That's the layer that's mixed. The top is just sitting on top. You understand?
Isn't machlokes about that? That
No.
some hold that it's all milk, and therefore they're not separating.
I don't think so. I don't remember any such opinion. I do not claim to remember all the opinions, but nevertheless, I don't remember any such opinion. Anybody else? Anybody remember that? That the fat on top of milk is not considered a separate species? The Magen Avram is the one who says that it is a separate species. He's the one that says you can only separate up until the point that it's touching. And I'll ever quotes him. I don't remember any other opinion. Shkoyach, shkoyach. Okay. Okay, the same thing is if you have a teapot, and the teapot has a strainer at the end of it. Meaning to say, in the teapot you have water and you have leaves in the bottom, and you pour out the tea from. All you want is the tea. You don't want the leaves. So again, there's a strainer on the spout that blocks the leaves from going out. As long as the leaves are settled on the bottom, you can take the top until you come to the point where it's mixed. You have a teapot. We don't really have these teapots anymore. This is all theoretical. We just have tea bags. We're not so fancy anymore. But they used to make tea with hot water in a special container, and on the bottom were the tea leaves. Not in a bag, just the leaves. And then where you poured it out, the spout, there was a little strainer that blocked the leaves from coming out. So if you want to pour the tea out of that pot, you can pour until the point where the leaves are mixed, because the top of it is not mixed, just like we said with the soup. That's all. Now, there is a chiddush of Reb Shlomo Zalman, which Farkash is not sure about and says better. Yeah, exactly. As long as it's not mixed, even though the over there it's on the top and it's going through it, but it's still okay. As long as there's on the bottom stuff that's not mixed, it's okay. Just like we said with the wine, you can take, even though there's dregs in the bottom, you can take even from a spout on the bottom because it's coming through from the top where it's not mixed. It's only when you reach the dregs that you have to stop. So the same thing with the water, correct? Okay, so here's the thing. Reb Shlomo Zalman has a chiddush, which Rav Farkash says is not so pashut, it's not so clear, but whatever. If you hold of it, here's his chiddush we mentioned in the past. Reb Shlomo Zalman says that a kli that's miyuchad l'boyer is only forbidden if it's not for boyer of immediate use. A kli that's miyuchad for boyer of immediate use, that's not called miyuchad l'boyer because that's a permissible boyer. That's not a forbidden boyer. The example that we said is a salt shaker with rice in it. People put rice in the salt so it should absorb the moisture, whatever. It's a shayla if you're using the salt shaker. So the salt shaker is going to hold back the rice and pour out the salt, which is taking what you want from what you don't want, but you're using a kli. You're using a kli, which is very helpful, right? Because it only has small holes. So that should be a problem. Shlomo Zalman says it's no problem because of course you're not finishing it, but what comes out is only the good. The fact does make a difference. You're separating what comes out. Inside it's all mixed. And you're separating what comes out to be only the good. That's called separating. This is important. This has to be explained. No, you're taking food from a mixture of food and not food. That is not correct. Very important mistake to correct, my friends. You cannot take the good from the bad with a keli and say, well, I'm leaving some good behind. What that's called, one second. Makes no difference how much. If you are boyer a groigris, the size of a groigris on Shabbos, that's a chiyuv chatas, regardless of how much you didn't boyer. It's like saying, I'm only going to cook a small amount. I didn't cook the whole thing. Doesn't work that way. You understand? You selected in a forbidden way a small amount. That amount that you selected is selected. It's clean. When we say there's no boyer, is if you let's say took it out together with bad. You took the good out with the bad. You didn't select. It was mixed before, mixed now. But if you take the good in a way that you're leaving behind the bad, okay, normally it's okay because you're going to eat it right away. But if you use a keli, or if you do it not for immediate use, you can't do it even though you're leaving behind plenty of good. It's very important.
So how can we push away the chamin in the potatoes?
What?
In the chamin, when you can push.
Because there you're not selecting. Selecting means to separate it. There you're not separating. You're just pushing it to the side. It's the same thing. I'm talking about taking out some good. You're separating it. You're removing it without any bad. That has been selected. That's clean.
So if I have a plate, and
Could it be that it's already just in there mixed? It's there all the time.
One second. I'm sorry?
If I have a plate and I take whatever I want, so this is okay, right?
For immediate use, without a keli. If you're not using a keli that's used for boyer and you're going to eat it right away, yes. But if you're using a keli that's used for boyer, or you're not going to eat that later, it's a problem. Daniel, go ahead.
I was saying maybe it's okay to use a salt shaker with the rice because it's always mixed in there. It's not like you're adding anything to it. I'm just trying to think of why it's okay.
What do you mean? What do you mean it's always mixed in there? What do you mean?
It's something which is there all the time. The salt and the
Yeah, but you don't want the rice to come out. You only want the salt out.
No.
You don't want rice.
But you said Reb Shlomo Zalman said it's okay, right?
Right, but he has a different reason.
Oh.
He says that the reason it's okay is because the salt shaker is used. It's used for immediate use. You don't use salt shakers in the kitchen. You use a big container. The salt shaker is at the table. You use it for immediate use, so it's not called a keli of brayer because it's not used. It's only used for immediate use. See what I'm saying? A keli of brayer is a keli that's used for brayer beforehand, which is a forbidden kind of brayer. But brayer that's done right before eating, that's a permissible kind of brayer. The kli that's used specifically with that is not called a kli amichel brayer. Similarly here, what do they do with these pots? They made the tea in the pots. They poured the tea into the cup right before drinking. That's a kli that's miyuchel for brayer of immediate use. Shlomo Zalman says that's okay. Just an interesting chiddush. Okay, David says the Rambam says it's not good to eat garlic. Why would he say that if it's a mitzvah to eat garlic on Friday night? I must say I don't remember what the Rambam says about eating garlic. Anybody else? Cooked garlic.
When you cook it, it's not strong enough.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Maybe the Rambam meant, or maybe what the Rambam is saying.
Or maybe there's a difference between cooked garlic and regular garlic. I hear you. I do hear you.
So,
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. I'm sorry.
What's the question?
Yeah, because there you're not selecting. It's all toothpicks. A toothpick from toothpicks is not selecting. That's a general thing. Okay.
the KeHalacha is
I understand. It's not selecting. You can use that if it's not selecting. You can use a keli as long as it's not doing butter. Okay, as far as removing tea bags, it's actually the same heter. Shlomo Zalman holds of the same heter. if you made tea in a permissible way on Shabbos, or for that matter, you made tea essence before Shabbos, and you have the tea bags mixed in. So you want to take out the tea bag, and you want to let it drip a little bit. So you're using a keli. The fact the tea bag itself is perhaps is considered a large solid and a liquid. But what about the fact that there's liquid mixed in to the little pieces inside? That's an actual mixture. And when you let it drip, you're selecting, using the bag of the tea to help you keep in the little leaves and take out the liquid that's actually mixed into those little leaves. Yeah, why not? I mean, they definitely design it to hold in the leaves and let out the liquid. It's not a kli, like you're not going to reuse it. It doesn't have a din of a kli, maybe for Kabbalah's Tumah, but I'm saying it's an item that is fashioned for the specific purpose of this sort of boyer. However, Reb Shlomo Zalman holds, I mean, the truth is, he says some people you should taka remove with a spoon, so that way you don't have the drops dripping out. But in any case, Reb Shlomo Zalman says it's not brayer for the same reason, because it's designed to remove and drink right away. So that's not a kli hamiyuchad lebayer, because it's not a forbidden kind of brayer.
Because it's big enough, they're allowed to.
Right. That's why the bag itself is not considered brayer. But his question is, what about the little drops that come out, which those are mixed into the tea inside the bag? So there you're selecting. You understand? Sorry? Okay. Or you can pour out if you hold that what you keep in your hand is what you're selecting.
Papa, you pour hot water to cliche. You take the bag and you put it inside. You're allowed to pick up the bag and put it 5 times, 6 times, or 3 times, or up and down.
Up and down?
Yeah.
Same machlokes. Same machlokes. If you say that it's boyer, then you can't. I mean, in the tea, yes. If you move it around in the tea itself, yeah. But if you take it out and back in and it drips each time, that's the same machlokes.
So yes, some will say yes, some no.
Correct.
Okay.
We learned before that to avoid boyers, take the cup out of the tea.
Take the cup out of the tea.
Out of the tea bag.
I've heard of that, Eitzah.
You mentioned, no, we learned.
I've heard of that, Eitzah, yeah. I've heard of that, Eitzah, yeah.
But
I don't remember where I heard it, but I did hear of it, yeah.
In the process, we're not going to have a dripping of the tea bag into the cup.
But it's still going to drip, it's not. There's no dripping the problem.
Dripping is a problem because it's taking both.
So what's the difference between this and this? Or you remove the cup or you remove the tea?
So if you're taking it still, it's going to drip into the cup.
Is the same dripping it will be.
I hear you.
So it doesn't matter because it's
I hear you. Maybe if they do it very quickly. Maybe.
I think somebody might have already asked it, but I'm kind of confused now. If we can use a salt shaker, why can't we just, why do we even have to worry about that? We're going to even using the teapot, the strainer on top. Even if you're going to pour.
It's the same exact thing. If you can use a salt shaker, you can use a tea bag and you can use a teapot. But
you don't even have to worry about going near the bottom. And
according to Shlomo Zalman, none of them are a problem because they are specifically used for immediate use. It's if you don't hold it Shlomo Zalman's chiddush, because it is a chiddush, so then you would have a problem. But according to Shlomo Zalman, they're all mutter. Yes.
So I mentioned there was machlokes whether you're allowed to use the tea bag as screen to pour out the water left in the bag.
Yeah.
So what's the?
Shlomo Zalman says yes. Maforker says some disagree. It's a machlokes. If you want to be strict, you can use a spoon.
Spoon to remove it?
Yeah, because that way it's not going to drip.
All the water will stay in the spoon.
Exactly.
Oh, this is a good idea. I can pick it up also with the spoon up and down.
No. The whole point is that you're not. When you're picking it up and down, you want the water to come out of it. Point is that you shouldn't get the water out of it. Understand?
Problem is when you put the tea, take a half an hour until you get the color.
So you move it around in the tea without taking it out.
I can do with a
In the
spoon.
in the tea, it's okay. In the tea, it's okay.
I got it.
Would I be able to leave the bag in the tea and squeeze the tea with the spoon to get them, excrete all the
Extract.
juice?
That's an interesting
While it's
shayla.
in the water,
While it's in the water.
it's a waste. It's an inch of water.
Is that a fact?
But you're not squeezing it outside.
I don't know. What if you have a lemon? You have a lemon in lemonade. You can squeeze it.
What is inside?
You just squeeze lemon.
What?
You just squeeze lemon into food, not into water.
Into food, not into water. I mean, it's a machlokes. That's true.
Sorry, everybody.
That's a machlokes. Let's talk about grapes. Grapes. Can you squeeze grapes in grape juice? Definitely not. Definitely not. I don't think you can squeeze it. I don't think so. I don't think so.
Not the usual,
What's the difference? What's the difference?
fruit is a different issue.
I don't think it's a difference. I don't think so. A liquid that's absorbed inside a solid, even if it doesn't originate in that solid, even if it came into that solid. Solid enough to hold the liquid. I'm saying, but if you're squeezing it, obviously you want what's more than what's dripping. You want to get what's absorbed in it.
But it's squeezing it, but it's absorbing the water right away. Again,
That I don't think that's a heter.
it's squeezing and it's absorbing. But
I don't think that's a
it's
heter.
not the win situation. It's not like it's going to come out dry.
I don't think that's a heter.
When you're squeezing a grape in the grape juice, it's going to come out without the juice. Over here, you're squeezing the tea bag.
I'll bring you a proof. I'll bring you a proof.
What?
Here it is. If my Shulchan Aruch will only load here, I'll be able to bring you a proof. Here it is, Laws of Shabbos. 320. The laws governing squeezing out liquids on Shabbos, coming up after Pesach and Mitzvah Hashem. So in I'm in out there, Shulchan Aruch. Oh, no, I have it. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. No, actually, no. This is falling out. Okay, no, he doesn't discuss it. I thought he discussed a case that where he uses a shmata to close up a hole in a barrel, and that the shmata was on the inside of the barrel, and that he was going to push it into the hole, and the wine was going to come out of the shmata into the wine in the barrel. I thought he discussed a case like that, but he doesn't. He only discussed it if you're pushing it on the outside, and the wine is going to drip out into the ground. So I don't have a proof. But I'm pretty sure that even squeezing it into liquid, directly into liquid, is a problem. I'm quite sure. Yeah. So let's continue. A general thing is that the pieces of juice, sometimes you have juice, and to make it look fancy, they put pieces of the fruit in the juice. You know what I'm saying? Like fancy stuff. So that is considered two separate species. We're talking about small pieces, so it is a buyer issue. That is considered a two separate species. So you would not be allowed to separate them using a keli. You would not, for example, be allowed to use a pitcher which has rims that hold it back when there's not much juice left. You're actually effectively separating the juice with the pieces that are mixed into it. So that's a bit of information to know.
It's like talking about like
even pulp, but in the case of pulp, it's only if most people are bothered by it. Most people drink it with that pulp, it's no problem, unless you personally are bothered by it. But if most people drink it and you're not personally bothered by it, even though you prefer it not, but it doesn't, you would drink it as is, so then it's not a problem to do, even with the actual strainer. I'm not saying the actual pitcher that blocks it. But if it's something that most people would not eat, it's too much pulp to that extent, then it's a problem. Okay, my friends, some halachas of boyer, we mentioned them in the past. Okay, so first of all, it is forbidden to sift flour on Yontif. You're allowed to bake with flour on Yontif, right? You can make challah on Yontif. You can bake matzah on Yontif, in theory, right? But you cannot sift the flour on Yontif because that is something you can do before Yontif. In general, on Yontif, you're allowed to do things that tzarech oichel nefesh if you couldn't have done it before Yontif without a loss of taste. You understand? You don't have to cook before Yontif. It's not going to taste as good on Yontif. You're allowed to break bread on Yontif. You're allowed to the whole dough. You can't grind the flour, but you can, from the flour on, you can do it. You can make the dough, you can bake the bread, everything. So I think you can even separate challah if you made it on Yontif, because that you couldn't have done before. Normally you can't separate.
But you said you can't even grind the flour.
You can't grind. No, you can't grind. From grinding and on, you can do, not including grinding. You can knead.
But sifting is after grinding, so.
Exactly. So I take it back. From kneading and on, including kneading, you can do. But you can't sift because you could have done that before Yontif without any loss of taste. So if you would bake it, it wouldn't be as fresh. If you would bake it before Yontif. The same thing applies to cooking. The same thing applies, by the way, to shechting an animal. A freshly shechted animal is tastier. So you're allowed to actually shecht an animal on Yontif. So,
For whatever reason, could you then do it on Yom Tov?
It's theoretically possible, but not actually recommended. In other words, in theory, you could do things that you personally were not able to do, even though they could generally be done, but because that heter could be misused, so it's very not recommended. I don't remember exactly in what cases they allow and what cases they don't, but very highly unrecommended. Maybe only with a shinui, or maybe not at all. It's one of those complicated things which I don't have at my fingertips. So, okay, now some people would sift their flour a second time after the first sifting, just to make it super clean. That could be done on Yom Tov, because that was normally done right before baking it. Miraked. It's a kibul mesaner. How is it called? The napot. Very good. So that was normally done right before baking, and that is okay. But you should still do it with the shinui, preferably, because it could be done before Yom Tov. It's just not the derech. Normally it was done right before you made the dough, so you can do it, but it's better to do it with a shinui. Okay, here's a halacha that I can't say I have it clear in my head, but I have to tell it to you anyway because it's the halacha. If you have flour on Yom Tov and a stone or some other junk falls into it, you cannot do boirer by hand. You cannot take out the thing that fell in by hand. Sorry?
This one?
I don't want to try to explain it because I don't understand it. I'll just tell you what the Alter Rebbe says. You cannot do that. Rather, you have to sift it a second time. We're talking about flour that you sifted already. Now something fell in. So to sift it a second time is mutter because you already sifted it, and what fell in you couldn't have controlled. You understand? But you can't remove the piece.
But if you, Rabbi,
Why not?
Even if you see it, or because you don't see it?
Talking about if you see it, what does that mean?
But if you see it, and it's a big pot, and you need only a couple spoons. You can take the spoon without touching the other the something fell in it.
What's the reason?
I'm not talking about a pot. I'm talking about flour.
Flowers. You get flour where? In the bag, right? Flour in
Yeah.
the bag. So something fell in it. You can see it. Then you need only maybe 3 or 4 spoons, 5 spoons. You can take it and leave the all you and put it there. It's easier.
What's the reason it's not the right?
I'm going to read the Alter Rebbe. I'm just going to read it. Maybe the holiness of the words will shine on us and help us understand. Tavkovav. Kamach shenirkad me'erev yantav. V'nafal asechet tzoroi kisim beyantav. Aser litle misham beyadav. Sharei hu boyer pselis metecha echal. V'haboyer pselis metecha echal afilu beyadoi. Chayev misham boyer. Kamesh kasav b'simen shen yotes. Actually, u'melechas ha'breyer hi mi'melachas ha'asuras b'yamtav afilu l'tzarech achila k'moshe kasav b'simen taf tzadik hey. Let me explain that. As far as which melachas are mutar and yantav, which melachas are not, so there are things that the Chachamim forbade, even though they're l'tzarech achila. They're forbidden because they're normally done in large quantities. So the Chachamim said you can't do it because either you may do it in a large quantity or it will look like you're doing it in a large quantity. So, for example, this is, according to one opinion, why you can't harvest on Yom Tov. I mean, others say it has to do with the fact that the taste will be just as good. But others say, no, even if the taste will be better. Fresh picked apple, mamash, and machayim. No, because normally you harvest in large quantities. Normally you winnow in large quantities. You thresh in large quantities. You select in large quantities. So therefore it's forbidden on Yom Tov. Even if now you're doing it in a small quantity, and you're doing it in a way that you couldn't do it before Yom Tov. This is the chiddush. You're doing it in a way that you couldn't do it before Yom Tov, because it just fell in now. Nevertheless, because it's part of a malacha that is normally done in large quantities, you can't do it on Yom Tov. However, he says, you're allowed to do the sifting on Yom Tov the second time. Then it's all Shabbos Kal, you don't have to change it. He only said to make a shina if you could have done it before Yom Tov. Here you're sifting it not because you want it to look nicer, but because something fell into it. So there's no way you could have done it before Yom Tov because it didn't fall into it until Yom Tov. Yeah.
Because it's contradicts from what we learned. To be merakel the whole flour again, you have to be reminded in melacha. I can take with a spoon, with some flour, and take the piece out. So over here, is in one say he told me to be reminded in melacha.
You remind me melacha if you have two options. Here you don't have two options. First of all, Alter doesn't hold that heter.
Huh?
Alter doesn't hold that heter the Taz.
But it's not. This was formed as with the liquid. This one is the flour is not liquid.
First of all, flour is liquid according to halacha.
Flour is liquid.
Yeah, compared to the solids that are in it, like we just said before. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, the point is, that wasn't my main point. The main point is that when do we say you're Memayit B'Breira, Memayit B'Torach, is if you have two options. Memayit B'Torach. But over here, you can't do the boyer way. You can't do the boyer way because this is part of the Malach boyer, which is generally done in large quantities, and the Chacham forbade it. So that's not an issue. The question is, how do you do it? Okay, you could be Merakel a second time. See what I'm saying? The other one is not an option. Okay, so
what can I just throw the flowers on the table over there? Just scoop out all the good flour.
The good flour, yeah, b'lakasha.
So we like the old flour. Again.
Because that's not also on Shabbos even. That's not if it's not also on Shabbos, it's not also on Yom Tov for sure.
On flour, on Shabbos, flour is
flour is muktzah, but I'm saying if you would have matzah meal, you know what I'm saying? You could do it on Shabbos because it's good for the bed. Okay, we continue and we say, where am I? Okay, here's a very interesting thing, my friends, based on what we were saying before. You're not allowed to do breira on Yom Tov in a way that's forbidden on Shabbos for any food item that is normally done in large quantities, like grain. You can't do breira of grains on Yom Tov at all, even in a way that is less tircha, because breira of grains is normally done in large quantities. So it's forbidden by the Chacham.
So you can't check the rice before you prepare it from them, so take the soil out.
I don't know about that. I don't know if that's done in large quantities. Large quantities, I'm talking about when they crushed the grain, they had the husk and they had the shells and they separated between them. But when you're cooking rice and you're looking through it, that's normally done right before you eat.
Before you cook it.
Before you cook, yeah. That's what I mean.
I have a question. The אשכול ענבים.
Yeah.
ויש שם כמה לא טובים, אתה אוכל ואתה לוקח אחד שלא טוב. Allowed to throw it in the garbage?
On Shabbos, you're not supposed to take it. You're supposed to leave it behind.
But you got
If you took it by mistake, you throw it out. But on Yom Tov, you're allowed to take out the bad.
Not on Shabbos.
No.
So what's happened if you have a score and you know?
If you took it by mistake, you throw it out. But l'chatchila, you don't take the bad. You only take the good.
You can eat it and leave the whatever is.
Yeah, that's the way. When it comes to things that are not normally processed in large quantities, for example, he says kitnius. Kitnius, beans. So those, if they had pieces mixed into them, you would normally select it right before you cooked it. It wasn't selected in the field. I don't know why, honestly. But that's the way it was. So that's when we apply what we learned in the past, that you are allowed to take whatever is easier to take out, whatever is less tircha, where if taking the good out of the bad is easier, because there's less good, you take that out. If there's more good, there's just a bit of bad, it's easier to take out the bad and get rid of it, then you do that. Whatever is less tircha is better. However, still in all, Alter Rebbe says that this is all if you couldn't have done it before Yom Tov. If you could have done it before Yom Tov, then you should not do it in this way, because Melacha you could have done before Yom Tov, you should have, and therefore you should go back to doing it only in the way you would be allowed to do it on Shabbos. The good from the bad for immediate use. Whereas coming back to a case where you couldn't have done it before Yom Tov, and you are doing it in the way that minimizes tircha, there is no rules of boirer, and therefore you can do it even in the morning for use in the afternoon. When it comes to Shabbos, you can only do good from bad for immediate use because that's called derech achila. When it comes to Yom Tov, because they allowed boirer in a way that would be less tircha, again, if you couldn't have done it before Yom Tov, and it's not normally done in large quantities, so then, because it's boirer is not forbidden, you could do it in the morning for the afternoon, because it's not a heter of tzarech achila. It's just that boirer is mutter. So as long as it's for Yom Tov, and not for after Yom Tov, obviously, you don't have to use it right away.
You also use a garlic crush on it.
Why didn't you ask if you're allowed to crush garlic on Yom Tov? You're asking as if you're for sure allowed to crush garlic. And you're asking if you can use a crusher. No, what's the answer?
On Shabbos, you know the.
On Yom Tov, you asked? On Shabbos, you can't. Sure not. On Yom Tov, can you crush garlic?
Let's say if you have Hilchos, you shouldn't, but you're not used to Hilchos.
I must say, Hilchos Yom Tov is very complicated. Nevertheless, there is a Siman in Hilchos Yom Tov about crushing spices. I just don't know if he discusses garlic. Let me see. It says b'shinu about pepper. I don't remember if it says it about garlic. Dine hatavlin b'yontif. Tavkuf tes. Tachan is a tavlin that is with the darkness unless it's shum shinoi. Kolan dech with the tavlin. Ki goin shum b'shachalaim pilpulin. Shomea? Okay, you can do it with the shinoi. Only with the shinoi. Shomea?
So she just garlic from.
Yeah. Only with the shinoi. It's a machloikas, but Lamaisi says only do it with the shinoi.
Use the cup.
Yeah. Cup
What
is
about
good.
the grinder, let's say, like you can,
Sorry?
just grinder, but you want to grind the eggs or the peel of the lemon or something like that.
What's a cheese grinder?
Just a grinder, a shredder, whatever.
A shredder.
You have to use it to, let's say, for making egg salad.
Egg salad, yeah. Egg salad, you can.
Peel off a lemon a little bit for tasting.
Egg salad is b'chlal nothing. It's not tochen, it's nothing. Peel of a lemon? What's the issue with peel of a lemon?
Because the peel itself is not like something really good.
Some people they take the klipa a little bit.
I don't know. It's getting too complicated for me. Okay. One day we'll learn Hilchos Yantif. One day. Okay. The Alter Rebbe does say that you can never use a keli that is usually used to select large quantities. And you can also not select with the help of water, like we had in the past about soaking something. Water, like soaking it in water to help everything separate. If it's something that is used usually in small quantities, then you can do it on Yantif. The example the Shmir Shabbos KeHalacha gives is a peeler. You can peel with a peeler on Yantif, whether it's an edible peel or non-edible peel. Because the fact is that's something you could not do before Yantif without affecting the taste. And it's something that's not normally done in large quantities, and it's
So
fine.
you can soak in water also.
So water.
Vegetable or whatever.
For what purpose? No. It says no, you can't. That you can't do.
Not them?
It says you cannot.
But what if you're working at a
One
You
second. I want to clarify. That you can't do because you could have done it before Yantif.
It's 2 days of it.
Could have done it before the first day. What's the big deal? Soaking in water. If you peel it before, it starts to go bad. It's not good anymore. But soaking in water to clean it, you could have done it before Yantif. I'm pretty sure he doesn't differentiate between different things of soaking. Let me just look it up. אפילו היה אפשר ליבר מערב יונטף, אסור להניח הקטניס במים כדי שיוצף, ואין צורך למה שעשה לנו פייסנו במגמר. אסור להניח מערב יונטף, אסור להניח הקטניס במים כדי שיוצף הפצלס למעלה, או כדי שיהיה האפרורס למטה. He says it about kidneys, which are normally done in small quantities. Even if you couldn't have done it before Yantif, you can't use water. Can't use water. I think it's because it wouldn't affect the taste if you do it before Yantif. I think that's the pshat. Yes, Daniel, sorry.
So in the case where it says you can only use a peeler for things in small quantities, I mean, how would that work? Like if one is preparing for a huge crowd, like at a Pesach retreat, you need to peel
I didn't say
1,000 potatoes.
I didn't say that you can only use a peeler for small quantities. I said because a peeler is generally only used for small quantities, you can use a peeler, period.
Oh, okay.
What I mean is that you don't normally peel for the future. You peel for what you're about to use. Unlike in the field, when they thresh and they process the grain, they do it for the whole granary. You see what I'm saying? That's
right. I could you clarify number 4 on your list regarding the beans? I didn't quite understand that.
Regarding beans and other items that are not processed in large quantities, one should do the brayer in the easiest way possible. Meaning to say, if it's easier to take the psoilus, you take the psoilus. It's easier to take the oichel, take the oichel. I did put in parentheses here, unless it's more psoilus than oichel, one needs to take the oichel from the psoilus, even if this is more difficult. For example, if the oichel is thin and difficult to remove. This is a very specific case, which I cannot say I looked into and that I understand the reason behind it. But if there is more psoilus than oichel, so normally it's easier to take out the oichel, right? But even if it's more difficult to take out the oichel because it's very thin and hard to reach, nevertheless, you have to take out the oichel from the psoilus if there's more psoilus than oichel. I can't say that I know why, but that's what the Alter Rebbe says. One may not turn milk into cheese on Yantif. One may make tea in a teapot and strain out the leaves. That's for immediate use. In the case of Beres Mutter on Yantif, i.e. couldn't have been done for Yantif, that's not usually in large quantities. One may even do it for use later on in the day, like I said before.
Is the reason why you can't make milk into cheese is because you could have done it before, because it's like we were talking about before?
Exactly. You could have done it before, and when you make it before, it's even better. Cheese made earlier is better than cheese made later. So therefore, it's not considered something that's better fresh. Why do you say it's not? I don't think so. If you were planning to do it, I don't think it's considered neder. I mean, the laws of neder are complicated, but if A, you were planning to do it, and B, it's not like a real change, like a significant change, then I don't think it falls into the category of neder. Like for example, I think maybe, I don't want to say what I think because it's very complicated, but I don't think this is neder. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
You may, but I just want to say that what I'm saying that it's not neder is borne out by the Alter Rebbe, who, when he talks about making cheese, he doesn't say a word about neder. He just says, I'll read the word. He doesn't say a word about neder, but I think anyway it's not in that category of neder because you expected to do it if you did, and it's not a completely new item. Yes. Pesach question. Go ahead.
So I read. Just read it. The Darkei Moshe pointed out that when performing this process, the halacha is the same for counters made of other materials as well, but you're allowed to catch them inside to be used. So the Darkei Moshe pointed out that when performing this process, it's important that the stream of water be direct and uninterrupted from the kettle to the surface being purged. That is, it would not be sufficient if one would throw the water from the kettle and allow it to splash down on the surface. One must hold the kettle above and pour the water down. Furthermore, one must pour the water directly onto the entire surface, being purged. It is not sufficient to pour the hot water in one or two places and allow it to spread across the surface being purged.
Sounds right.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to, you have to hit every square inch. Meaning everywhere where the pour hits is the place that's kosher. Anywhere else is not kosher.
Pretty much, yeah. I don't know if it's like literally every square inch. I don't know what.
Wherever the water is poured, let's say the water from the spout of the kettle, comes to be, let's say, inch by inch.
Right.
2 inches by 2 inches. So that's the only place where that's kosher. Anywhere above and beyond that is not.
I mean, I hear what he's saying, but I don't know exactly if it's literally only that inch by inch or if it's maybe a little bit extra.
Guys, to keep the water boiling because as soon as you pick it up, it's not boiling anymore.
That's a chumrah. Yeah, that's a chumrah. On Pesach, we do all the chumras. On Pesach, we do all the chumras, so it's a good chumrah. But I'm just saying, it's a good chumrah, but it's not maker adin. It's not maker adin. I usually write a Pesach article, and I explain that in the article.
So what should I do? Just the big
Just cover it.
cover it? So I'm not gonna cover it. I mean, I could cover my counters, but it's not a.
What is it made out of?
I don't know, right? I don't know.
Granite. I'll try to look into it if I remember.
I would mind you.
Okay. We have a deal. Rabbi Isai, I wish you all a kosher fail on Pesach. And only good things. Thank you very much. I'll see you in Mitzvah Hashem in a couple weeks. In 3 weeks, specifically 3 weeks. Thank you very much. Thank you. Special Pesach present.
A quick Shiloh.
Yes.
I have a friend who's.
Meyer, we have a minion.
He's going to the church.
1 second. Kosher and I have Pesach. Daniel, David. All the best.
And
Okay.